Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I'm actually beat, so I'm going to do a quick Q&A, and when I say quick, I mean it's going to be all lightning round, and it's probably still going to be 30 to 40 minutes. So it'll just be minimum editing, I suppose, is what I mean by quick at the moment. I just spent over 3 hours doing a video react. I don't really do reactions on the channel, but it was a topic that I thought would be pretty interesting to provide perspective on. It was Josh Strife. It's too long. It was Josh Strife's video on MMO content creation, and so it had some people we already know from the Final Fantasy XIV community. Zepla's in there, Work to Game, Ginger Prime are all in there, and it has a bunch of other very well-known MMO voices in there as well, alongside Josh's. So I did a react, but the video itself is almost 2 hours long, and with my commentary, pausing and whatnot, my video ended up being over 3. So that probably, I don't know if that'll be out today when you're seeing this on Monday, but either way, I haven't even eaten yet. It's 9:20 p.m. and I kind of just want to get through this and then worry about all the other stuff, worry about eating, worry about getting that video edited, rendered. Plus, I still need to get some stuff ready for the VOD channel as well. The Live Alive playthrough is going up, Xenoblade 3. I'm kind of nervous about uploading the Xenoblade 3 playthrough. I'm very negative in the first 10 hours of Xenoblade 3, but I will say that from Chapter 3 onward, my experience has been much more positive with Xenoblade 3. The issues are still there, and I'm still very aware of them, and I'm noticing them, but they aren't hindering my ability to continue the game, play the game, or enjoy the game. And thankfully, the story is, I think, miles better than Xenoblade 2's so far. It was as good or better than Xenoblade 1's, which I much preferred. So, actually, it's quite a few positives. Just some of the negatives in the first 10 hours almost made me quit the game. So I might do a video on that, like my experience in the first 10 hours, exclusively a video on that, and then preface it by saying I've since played past that point and things have gotten a lot better, and we'll talk about that in the next one. So thinking of these segmented reviews so I can project my thoughts at any given point in a game, which might lead to some more content for the channel. We shall see. Anyway, this intro is already longer than I want it to be, so let's get started. Thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon. You guys are awesome. You don't have to support the channel. Everything I post on YouTube is free, but those of you who do, thank you. I appreciate you. Also, special shout out to HelloFresh. They are still sponsoring my Twitch channel until August 13th. And if you're in the US and you want to try it out, I've been using it for 2 years. There's a link in the description of the video. And essentially, they send you ingredients and they send you recipes, and then you cook those recipes yourselves with the ingredients they send. So you have no waste left over. You don't have to go to the grocery store. And if you're in an area like I am, I'm in San Francisco, it's honestly cheaper, really, to do that, to cook for me and my girlfriend like that, than it is for us to eat out or order out, or even sometimes go to the grocery store and just buy basic things. So I've been using it for some time. The deal comes with 16 free meals and even 3 extra gifts in the first 7 boxes. And if you have any questions, feel free to tweet them at me. Ask me when I'm live streaming. I have no qualms answering them because, like I said, I've used the service for far longer than I've been sponsored. So anyway, with that, let's do a lightning round Q&A, and then I'm going to eat and go to bed. After I hit render, I'll eat and go to bed. All right, if you've never watched Lightning Round Q&A, I generally don't put the questions on the screen because you can see me scrolling through it all, and sometimes there's comments on there that, I curate it on a normal week, so you can tell why I would probably curate it in a week like this as well. This first one is about people. So knowing a lot about Final Fantasy XIV lore, a rather interesting question you might know the answer to. I looked for the answer and can't seem to find it unless I didn't look hard enough. So I'm going to a friend last night about Gilgamesh and was showing her some location where he's fought. I've noticed that a lot of Final Fantasy games, Gilgamesh, and always, if not always, is fought on a bridge, a big bridge, and a big keep. All 3 of which are on a bridge. Final Fantasy VIII is not directly fought on a bridge, shows up to save the day on the bridge. Yeah, he's always a bridge. What's the connection of Gilgamesh always being fought in these locations? It's just a reference to where you fought him. His first ever appearance is in Final Fantasy V, and you fight him on, it's a battle on the big bridge. So now every time they do it since then, it's a reference to that. It's really not any more complicated. Now, if we were to look at the Epic of Gilgamesh, maybe there's a deeper meaning behind that, something for people with more real-life knowledge on the context that Gilgamesh actually is born from, but I don't know that off the top of my head. So that's as good of an explanation as I can provide, one that's also very simple. Then we have one here. I'll try to keep my text short because I've got a couple of related questions. Ivy, oh my goodness, you already ate all of your food? No, you need to relax. Ivy, come up here. Be a part of this. You're going to delay me. Curious to living it up. I'll try to keep my text short. Curious to learn about streaming. What do you think are the best, hardest parts of starting? do it. If you go into streaming expecting to make a living out of it, you've already doomed yourself. You need to do it because it's fun. Maybe tell some of your friends you're doing it and invite them to hang out and use it as kind of a hangout spot at first. And if you can then put more effort into things like the production, the visuals on the screen, your transitions, all that stuff, cool, great, put on a better show. But you have to go into streaming not with the expectation of it being a career. You have to go into it thinking it's going to be fun. And while it may lose some of those aspects going forward, you may find that some aspects aren't fun if you start to do it very, very seriously. You need to make sure that you find your way back to that. It's really important, and I think people really undermine themselves when they think too much about the specifics of it, like you ask about equipment or tips, as opposed to just doing it. If you've got a good enough internet connection and a good enough computer to stream the game, go for it. That's it. Get a microphone. Don't even need a camera if you don't want one, but you don't even need a microphone if you don't want one technically, but get a Logitech C920 if you want a camera, get like an Elgato mic or a Blues Yeti, or just use your headset mic or whatever, and just go. It doesn't matter. As long as you're having fun and putting on a decent show, then you're doing all you can really do when you're first getting started. Oh my goodness, there's so many very wordy questions that are here, so thank you for doing that as well. So all the context, really curious what they've done with it from A Realm Reborn to now. Are there specific changes to the role that you expect to see in the future? There's so much text here that I'm mentally not prepared to look at right now, and there's no TLDR for it at the moment. I don't even know if I can answer this. I'm sorry. I'm in way too tired of a state to get through all of that text right now. So I really apologize. I have to move on past that one. I just want to ask, how do you keep tabs of all the lore and pick up the hints so fast? I miss a lot of things with the lore, and I forget a lot of things with the lore. I wouldn't say I'm actually that good at doing those sorts of things. But sometimes little bits and pieces come back to me. Sometimes it's just kind of stored away in my brain somewhere. And I just managed to do it. It's because I care. It's because I'm passionate, and it's because I enjoy it. And for me, that's all I need. I'm very quick at picking things up and learning things. I always have been. It's a character trait of mine. But just stopping to, if you're not someone like me who can kind of pick up on things or notice them and kind of compartmentalize them, then you just need to slow down. Take your time. Make notes if it helps you remember things a little bit better. And that's about it. Pay attention to Reddit posts when people bring up random pieces of flavor that other people might have missed. And sooner or later, it just kind of becomes second nature, I feel. At least that's what it was for me. I have a question hopefully you can answer. What is your opinion on people getting carried on ultimates just for the totem of their choice with real money? You're scum sucking. And people do it. I don't understand why. I don't. There's no part of me that really understands why someone's doing it. And maybe scum sucking is a little extreme. I think that's just because I'm tired. Let's I haven't eaten. Let's reel it in, Mr. Madge. I think it's depressing to think that somebody thinks that that's a valuable thing to spend money on. If they want to, it's their money. But I think it's a depressing reality that somebody wants to buy that clear or buy a totem. It's funny. I've heard stories that there are people who buy clears who already have clears, but because they can't find a group to do re-clears, or they don't want to find a group, or they don't have time to find a group, they actually just they pay for the carry for the extra totem, not even for that initial clear, which is almost more understandable. There's also people who buy clears who want it for role-playing purposes. And honestly, those are two of the most honest things I've heard. Whereas other people use it as this like weird gloating tool, like act like they beat it. That I don't understand. Because if you are a carried legend, you stick out like a sore thumb, and people can tell, and people will blacklist you and take you out of groups for it. So don't do it. It's not a good idea. Not to mention, you can just be banned for it. I mean, odds are you won't. I feel like that we don't never hear about people being banned for it, probably because it doesn't happen that frequently. But it's don't do it. Notice when you're recording some videos, you appear, your room gets flipped. Yeah, sometimes my cameras. I think in State of the Realm, my cameras flip because Discord naturally flips it. I don't know why. Most of the time it's normal. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes it is. It's just Discord. I think Discord flips it. And that's all there is to it. And yeah, you even say State of the Realm. So I think that's all it is. I think that's just Discord flipping it and me not caring to fix it. State of the Realm for melee DPS? No, I don't think we've done most of the roles. I have a really hard time getting super invested in organizing those because I don't find individual roles to be worth a whole show's worth of topics. Can try, but I honestly feel like general job changes are a better show topic than individual jobs. I don't think Final Fantasy XIV is in-depth enough to do a whole show on them. Even though I've done shows like that before, I'm just always hesitant to do it because I just think it's a tougher topic to make interesting. It's really on the people, and there's always a degree of risk when you bring on people who are predominantly experts in jobs and roles versus people who make for great podcast guests. So I feel like the pool is very narrow in that front, and I like to be very particular. Not to mention I hate bothering people to do shows on that. But sometimes we do. Sometimes if we feel like it's worth bringing up, we will do a show on that, but we haven't done one anytime recently. What would you say are your top 3 fight mechanics to do? I don't have a top 3 for fight mechanics. There are fights I've enjoyed because they are a collective bunch of mechanics that we identify and recognize, and I find they've done something creative with them or something that is very exact or has some aspect to it that is specific, but there's no particular mechanic, like Light Rampant is made up of a bunch of mechanics we already know, but I'm not like a super big Light Rampant fan, for example. Whereas, what's a better example? E5S, Furious 14. It's the tank blocking a tank buster with a QTE in it as well, with a bunch of other people lining up on half a side of the arena, being knocked to destroy a bunch of pillars and then to avoid a line AoE. It's all a bunch of stuff we recognize, but Furious 14 does them in a way that's really, really good for a first raid fight in a tier. And it felt like it was a fairly creative use of it. So, but I don't have a real answer. I don't find any of them particularly to be my favorites. I only have thoughts on every individual one that I've done. So I'm sorry that my answer is not as on the point that you were hoping to get with that. Then we have stark lack of party finders up for grinding new Moogle tomes. Most people are making pre-mades or just joining like PvP queues and stuff. That's not too surprising. Blue mage groups basically get Moogle tome farms done in an hour or two. And those are usually on the first day, and then they dissipate largely until the evenings. So in the evenings, you might see some, but don't be surprised if you end up just needing to queue into PvP a little bit and try to get some wins or losses to get some, or even just queuing into the individual instances on your own, because they'll probably have faster queue times now than they normally do. Lately, I've been trying to turbo through my DSR prog. Ooh, turboing through prog is really, really tough. Week 3 static I left a few weeks ago, almost past Wrath Flames. Feel like burnout is creeping. I mean, after months and months of doing it and not being done, I mean, the way you feel is perfectly normal. And my interest in Savage is at an all-time low. This is why I've actually criticized DSR, even though I think as a fight it is collectively really, really cool and really well done. It is also a fight that actively discourages people from wanting to participate again because of how arduous and tedious and demanding it can be. You're not the only person I know who's not even interested in the next Savage tier because of how punishing DSR was. And it's why the idea of another ultimate being in point 3 is concerning to me for the average raider who wants to get into that after doing the previous Savage tier, only to have another Savage tier right after that. I think it would be better to take a break if you are really, really stressed about it right now and you're actually losing interest in Savage altogether, than it would be to push through and then barely clear it before the next Savage tier and then have to know you're committing to a whole nother raid tier to learn. You need a downtime. You need a break, or you risk the burnout way more than most other people would. My opinion would be to take a break and to wait until the next Savage tier and then go back in the DSR afterwards, which admittedly will be tough. It's not an easy ultimate. It's very, very demanding. So that may not even yield you the results that you want, but you got to think about you before you think about clearing a fight in a video game. That's just how it is. With regards to raid tiers, what non-gear stuff will I need to replace going into 6.2? Everything. It'll all be replaced with a new tier of pots, new tier of food. Materia won't be. Materia, you just need to have a bunch of grade 10s and grade 9s saved up so you can meld the new gear. But pots and food, yeah, those will be completely replaced. Watching your Puppet Master video, what are your thoughts on something like Pirate or Corsair being a job? Now, I think I even bring up in that video, I generally don't do these kind of questions very well because I don't find that my personal thoughts on these things are in any way relevant or important. Oh my God, Ivy, what are you doing? I think you can make any idea work in Final Fantasy XIV. within a certain realm. Like a dodge tank, I don't think works in Final Fantasy XIV with the way our damage is done. They've gone out of their way to even remove dodging on the DPS that had skills like perfect dodge or mana wall completely negating physical damage because of its toxic interaction with the game's intended design. So something like that I don't think works. But almost any other idea, there's no reason you couldn't do it. You know, a pirate could have a sword in one hand and a gun in the other hand. They don't even need to have a main and an off hand. It could be one item, one dual weapon that, you know, comes together as part of a set. You could also just make it so that, you know, machinist is the one-handed gun and that, you know, a pirate or a corsair instead uses a different kind of gun. There's all sorts of possibilities you can go for. It's just a matter of whether or not they will do it. And I don't feel like my opinion reflects what I think the dev team will do or what I think the dev team should do. Only what they could do because it is indeed their game. Will current Bis be the best to start the next raid tier? No, the new crafted gear will be. You'll also have an extreme weapon, and we should have a week of tomestones under our belt because of the 1 week delay on Savage, and that will give you access to either, you know, a couple of tome pieces. Maybe you just go with legs or a body on the second week, or maybe you decide to grab some smaller pieces. Or if you plan on clearing the second and third fight and you're a melee DPS, you might even consider picking up the weapon after you've cleared the third fight, so you have that weapon for the fourth fight. Well, you pick up the weapon after the second fight and then upgrade it after the third fight, and that would make for the total experience. Ivy, you're all over the place. You need to make up your mind. Come on. Impression from last Monday, you don't like the Nier raid? No, I don't. I think the story is super ham-fisted. I think it doesn't fit. It doesn't build the world of Final Fantasy XIV. And I'm not going to lie, I think most of the fights aren't good. They're not fun. They kind of drag on too long. I will say the second raid, the Puppet's Bunker, I think is the best of the three. I think the third fight, the first, third, and fourth fight? Yeah, I think the first, third, and fourth fight, they're all actually pretty good 24-man bosses. The music in all of them is fantastic as well, but the story is super lackluster. It doesn't serve our game at all, and it feels like a completely wasted opportunity for them to expand Final Fantasy XIV's world and lore in favor of doing a 2-year collaboration. We did get another large man raid series in that expansion, in that of the Bojda series. We know we got some 48-mans, a 24-man, even a 48-man Savage out of that. But it's I don't even care about the aesthetic. I also think the gear is kind of lame. I thought the gear was cool in the first one because it was, you know, it was what everyone expected it to be. Then the second raid, Puppet's Bunker, came out and I was like, this gear's like the same, but they like got rid of a sleeve. And then the third raid, I just didn't care anymore. By that point, I was already buried in disappointment, so I couldn't bring myself to care anymore. This kind of a hi. I've gotten into 2 arguments with 2 different friends about this, and I'm wondering if I'm crazy. I shared that I believe that they should update the tome cap to either increase it or simply make it so it increases after some time. Why would anyone argue? Here's the thing. When the raid is first out, I believe the current cap is fine. It is deliberately designed to make sure that players have a week-to-week goal and that they can't just skip the gear grind altogether. But I do believe that by the time the odd-numbered patch rolls around, especially if there is a new ultimate coming out, that the tome cap becomes dated in that case, because some people maybe weren't prepared to try to get into the ultimate raid before the odd-numbered patch came around, and then before the 2 weeks that they have before the ultimate releases. And by raising the cap, you allow them to get more gear access, so they feel encouraged to try out ultimate if they weren't otherwise ready for it. Nobody wants to hear they got to wait 6, 7, 8 weeks to get loot from tomes and raid because they decided they wanted to do ultimate too late, too close to it actually coming out. And yeah, will it be there later after all of those restrictions are lifted? Sure, but that's not a good enough reason to keep those restrictions so strict when you could be encouraging your player base to participate in this very, very high effort content that they've gone out of their way to make. So I don't think you're crazy. I think that it should be something they do eventually, but before they completely lift the cap and before the end of the expansion when they do normally double the cap as a whole. Seeing your latest State of the Realm, when Crafter Gather Relics was mentioned, you said they're a pain. Is the grind for them pretty bad? Yeah, it's not too bad at first, but the last step is kind of annoying. I just don't want to do them because I'm not interested in crafting and gathering. Because there's a bit of a novice nature. That's fine. How can a new player find an FC? Most people shout or look in the party finder. Even there is also a free company finder, I think, on the Lodestone as well. And there's just a few basic things. If you usually shout in a town that you're looking for a social free company with leveling buffs to kind of hang out and meet new people, or even just, even if you want to be honest and just be like, honestly, I just want the FC buff, but I'll help you level your FC or generate points or whatever, you could do that. And I think it'd be perfectly fine. So those would be my my recommendation, is just to do a shout or to look in the party finder to see if anything is posted there. Let's see, what else do we have? I agree with Mr. Happy, full stop. Didn't say about what, so that kind of concerns me. Hey Hap, how goes? Hi. I should have said hi to everyone at the start. Now I'm the rude one because I'm tired and I want to get to eat dinner and go to sleep. Burr, burr, burr. I 100% understand why you would be reluctant to ever have something like the Alliance raid to be attached to collab or anything like that. That said, would you really not be excited to see a trial for something like the Three Lords from Sunbreak? No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't want that. The main reason, one of the main reasons I don't like the collaborations being tied into our major content as opposed to being additional content is because I'm always looking to see our world and our lore explained and explored. And when they go for the collaboration route, these are non-canon entries into Final Fantasy XIV's world. They've stated as much that Nier is not canon to Final Fantasy XIV. That raid's entire existence has no relevance to the rest of Final Fantasy XIV's world or lore, despite the fact that it exists within it. I don't like that. I don't mind if it's something extra like the Rathalos fight or something like the Final Fantasy 15 event or the Garo event where you're already doing content, you're just getting these extra rewards. Same with the Yokai Watch event. But when they entirely replace series that have classically expanded our world and our lore and our game, I'm not a fan of it. So no, I wouldn't be a fan of that if it was in place of, let's say, the 4 Archfiends being our trial series for this expansion. I wouldn't be excited, or even the possibility that that could have happened, but it being overwritten by a collaboration. Let's see, what determines your connection status on the character select screen? You know, I don't know the answer to that. I feel like mine always says good, even though I have like sub 15 ping. So I actually don't know the answer to that question. I apologize for that. How do you feel about the state of Relic and Shiny Ultimate Weapon hoarding? I don't have any opinion on it because it doesn't really matter to me. I would like to hang them on the walls, though. I was under the impression we would get that as a feature, but instead it ended up just being a dresser or a cabinet that has preset visuals, and that was super disappointing. I want a weapon rack for my wall. I do want it. Not even an Island Sanctuary in my apartment, so I can... And here's the thing. You probably wouldn't be able to store them as in reduce inventory space. They would probably just be on display, but I'd still want it. So, but I don't really have an opinion on this. I just have an opinion that I want weapon racks as a housing item. Good day, Mr. Happy. Wish you Will Ost in Australia. I don't know what that means. Question, do you think the relic should be tied to extra story quests like Hildebrand? I think there's no problem with it. I think it depends on how long it takes to do. Hildebrand takes about 2 to 2.5 hours to do, even with watching all the cutscenes, because you can unsync 3 of the fights, and the last one you can unsync with 2 or 3 people, which is, you know, not a problem at all. You can also sit in the queue for it, which is probably not the greatest, but you could do that. But it's not a very long series. If it was something that took like 8, 10, 15 hours and it was super tedious, honestly, Return to Ivalice is more tedious to do than Hildebrand. And that was just because those quests were tedious to do. Didn't have to be as tedious of an experience if those quests weren't so verbose and extra, which they're pruning them. So proof that that was actually the case. I think it's not a problem, though. It just has to be done tastefully. And I think this is being done tastefully enough. Still rooting for the Kingdom Hearts crossover. Not me. You should play Earth Defense 5. It might help with your phobia. That's not how that works. That's not how phobias work. You don't just play the thing that is your phobia and conquer it. I don't think that's how it works. Really like the Monster Hunter trial. I think that might be it for the questions. I think most of these have kind of been pushed to the bottom at this point. Is there any proof Steve saying the Nier isn't canon? Yes, there are interviews. What's it called? I'd have to find the exact interview, but I've covered interviews on this YouTube channel amongst the 3,000 plus videos where they've outright stated that collaboration events are non-canon. So that's it. that's all you need. They've said, you know what? It might have been a FanFest coverage because it was Koji who said it. Not even Yoshi P. It was Koji. Let's see, seems kind of pointless, like, you know, all range limit breaks besides 5% of the time. I mean, that's true of anything. I mean, you use the limit break for what you need. If you need a line AoE, you use the ranged LB. You see it in a few cases. If you need multiple, but they're kind of grouped up in a circle, you do the caster LB. If you don't need either of them, you do the melee LB. Do you know how many groups have saved themselves with tank and healer LBs? I've seen entire clears come out of those, especially in week 1, just because they're available as the options that they are. But another cool button unique to your class doesn't have to be a limit break. You know, it could literally just be a skill with a 5-minute cooldown, and it'd be no different than having a personalized limit break. Zero difference at all. So that's the main reason why a personalized limit break is pointless. It's because it literally doesn't need to be a limit break. It just needs to be a long cooldown button that you have, and that functions the same like a tank and vuln skill or benediction. You know, those are essentially limit breaks for those jobs, as our 2-minute buttons would be on a DPS, for example. Let's see, a bunch of Kaiten comments here. Don't go into water. What do you do? Choose white mage, being a shield. Wait, what? When you do verse, choose white mage because being a shield healer is boring and all it needs is a blood lily mount. Then choose Reaper because it's utility. All right, this isn't a serious comment. I refuse to believe it. Oh man. What's it called? And I think that might be it. Let's see. Yeah, and then there's more comments about the pyro thing. Listen, it's one person just like positively affirming a bunch of other people. I just gotta say, you gotta move past it, man. You gotta move past it. There's a lot of people who get hung up on things that content creators do years and years and years before. And again, I'm speaking from experience here. There are people who still try to insult me with things that happened in 2014. You need to learn to let things go and grow past things and see that if you believe that you yourself as a person can grow and improve and learn from a situation, that somebody else can too. And if you're not willing to accept that, I got to admit, you got some growing to do as a person. And I think we all do at some point. I think there is a point where a lot of us kind of fall into that trap. I know I did. So there's nothing wrong with admitting it. It's just seeing somebody commenting on every comment about Pyro, just like trying to negatively affirm it. There's that. See, that's the thing. I said this last week. I feel like if you are doing that you might be somebody that I might remove from my channel regardless, because there's clearly this like obsessive nature about the events that occur or how you perceive them occurring, whether it be one or the other, because it's hard to tell at times. That is not healthy, and you almost need to be removed. So that's an honest opinion about that. I'm not afraid to state it either. So just going to wrap up this video with that quick little PSA as I read the last couple of comments down at the very bottom. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of our weekly Q&A. The remaining things are comments about some things that I already mentioned, so we should be good to go. If you have a question for next week's Q&A, one that I might actually answer the next one on Saturday. Like I might record it on Saturday because I'm going to be kind of busy on Sunday. I might not be home to actually record a Q&A. So get your questions in before Saturday of next week if you're sure. If you want to be sure that it'll be seen. And I'll remind that at the beginning of next episode that I did that. So if you asked it late Saturday or throughout any of Sunday, then I would have missed it. So be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Ask your questions for next week's Q&A. And I'll see you guys then. Until then, I'm going to go eat. Bye-bye.